and we are into Dominica, man, at WCK. Getting down with Balance Party. One of the big hits from the Caribbean region, especially from Dominica. Booyah music.
Who say we can't make them jump? Who say we can't make them wild out? Well, people, let's check this one.
Enforcement brass out of the USVI. The days off for 17 plus, the jam band, Imaginations brass, burning flames. Just about 4 minutes, let's make that 3 minutes on to 8. We have Straight Talker coming up momentarily. Just want to thank you guys very much for being a part of the device today on the Jump On Show, powered by Flow. Alan Bakery's Carib Buick Stag, Fast Cash on the Sick. I'm out of here until we meet again tomorrow, God's willing.
Everybody
suggesting is back and forth. That sometimes, as human, people can say things about you and you reach the limit and carry the name of God. Let him fight the battle.
It's a
Well, I don't usually call into the radio.
ask your questions.
My brothers want to do. Yes, Satan, I'm judging sin.
And speak your mind.
Good evening, in fact, one good son deserves another. And like I said, a good son.
Every Monday and Thursday night from 8 until 10 p.m. Liburd.
When you hear that theme song, you know you, the straight up family with some kids and newbies. Time to bid you a very pleasant night. Also to all those in the entire Caribbean region. My straight up family in the station and the Libyan diaspora, I say greetings to those who are logged on to ZIZ online as well by our station Win FM house is our good sister station Sugar City FM St. Kitts. My brother Val T is always in the house, so we do have that simulcast by Win FM and Sugar City FM as well. So I want to really welcome, as I said, all those who are logged on to these stations on the World Wide Web. I know that some of you African, Asia, there's a whole lot of you all over the world. And I'm at liberty to say good night. I can't say good morning, or I can as well in some because one of such greetings is applicable to the region in which you find yourselves. Perhaps on a short vacation, maybe, just maybe on a business trip, or I know that many of you have considered the region in which you find yourself as your place of abode. That facilitates and promotes peace. Let's in the process continue to keep St. Kitts and Nevis as one of the freest countries in the entire world. On this program, we try to raise the level of national consciousness. We try to raise the level of national discourse by alerting our people to their rights, to their responsibilities, and certainly to their obligations. My Street Dog family, we do as well. As I said, my name is Ian Patches Liburd, and I do welcome you and give God thanks for this opportunity to join you once again on Straight Talk. We do usually have first-time listeners, and in the event you are a first-time listener, we just hope and trust it won't be your last time. And just to inform you as a first-timer that we do entertain, we do include your calls and your emails, and if you're so minded to call, you can access the program via
465-2555. That's one line, or one number, I should say. We have 3 access lines via that number. If you're in the diaspora, you can access us via 718-577-2916. And if you like the cloak of anonymity, as I would say, you don't want to be heard, you don't want to be seen, we do have a Facebook, a massive Facebook platform up as well. And our engineers, Jonathan and Bevin, are in the house. And if you are so minded to email us, the email platform is zizstraightalk@gmail.com. That's zizstraightalk, that's one word, at gmail.com. And as promised, tonight, my Straight Talk family, we do have a guest in the house. And our guest is none other than Martha Lee of ADB Construction, consultancy engineering firm from Jamaica. They do have offices here in St. Kitts, and ADB has been around for a long time. Do welcome Martel, first time on Straight Talk. And as we say, we talk straight. And we just thought it would be a prudent thing to give the country an update on all these projects that are ongoing. And who better to provide an update than Martel Lee of ADB. Tell us a little bit of ADB and Martel.
Good afternoon, listeners.
It's morning, actually. It's night.
Oh, night. Well, as you say, it depends on where you are in the world.
Okay.
Yes, so it's good afternoon, good night, and good morning. Let me just follow the trend. I'm Martha Lee of ADB Consultants Limited. First and foremost, I'm currently the managing director of ADB Consultants. And if I put ADB in perspective, then I hope that will give clarity to my position in the company. ADB Consultants was formed in 1964, January actually of 64, by Fred Bengut. Fred Bengut is an engineer, civil engineer, worked in Jamaica, was engaged to work in Jamaica, fell in love with the island, and set up one of the first consultancy on the island. Operated for some time and joined with his compatriot out of Trinidad and Barbados to the company in 1972 became Atas, the Four, and Bengut. We operated from there on in Trinidad as ADB. It was Atas, the Four, and Bengut. The company grew to about 64 engineers and many partners. And the prudent thing to do at the time when the partnership increases is to, rather than dwell on the names of the partners, the name was changed to A, keeping Atas, B, Bengut, and DE, which is the Four. So it became ADEB Consultants. The company operated that way to this date, although we have changed partners and engineers several times. I joined the firm in September of 1991, almost 30 years. I'm just reflecting on it now. Initially, I was a lecturer ADB at CAS, now the University of Technology, and that I did since 82 to 91 full-time, 91 to 2005 part-time, and eventually I joined the University of the West Indies to set up the civil engineering course, which now run not only in Trinidad, which used to be the center of engineering, but we now have the Faculty of Engineering at Mona in Kingston. I became managing director of ADB in 2000 and has been the managing director since. And that, I think this coming September is 20 years. I think so. Projects.
So you've been around in the engineering field for some time. And was there an office here? Or I do recall there was an office here, and somebody used to actually run that ADB office in St. Kitts. Am I correct?
Yes. ADB actually operated not only in Jamaica, but as I said, Trinidad, Barbados, at one point London, Kingston, London and New York, and of course St. Kitts. And that's how I actually became familiar with St. Kitts. I think the first time I was appointed director of ADB, the meeting was here in St. Kitts. I think that was 98. And we had our meeting here.
Was that with Mr. Claxton, was it?
Yes.
Mr. Claxton?
Yes.
The brother of Dr. Claxton, right?
Dr. Claxton
Yes.
and Oral Claxton.
Oral Claxton, right.
And Oral would have been with us on these projects had he not had some health issues. And unfortunately, he was with us the night he got ill and had to be escorted to Canada for health reasons. And he's there. We still communicate. You would not know he's as jovial as he has been throughout the time I know him.
So he's still part of ADB?
He's still part of ADB,
Okay.
yes. He's part of ADB, but not an active part of ADB.
Okay.
He's the guiding part of ADB. So is Jack Attas, who is 94, in England, lives in London. And I spoke to both of them at Christmas time, which is normally the time we kind of link with each other across wherever you are and reminisce on the time we have spent together. Mr. Claxton, as I used to say when we were here, when I'm in St. Kitts, we always have breakfast, almost always. And he would take me wherever I want to go, and I would leave my belongings in his car, and his car could never be locked. And my worry coming from Jamaica was that everything is going to go missing. He said, no, nobody takes anything in St. Kitts.
Not in St. Kitts, no.
Yeah.
So ADB have taken part or participated in several projects here in St. Kitts. You care to tell us about that?
Yes, I think some of them were before my time, and most of them at that time was to give assistance to Oral when he requested. We would do the design, he would do most of the supervision. The first project I worked with him on was, I think he was doing a school, and something went wrong and I flew down. I can't even remember the name of the school. If he was around, he would chastise me for not remembering. But then the second stint was with the sea defense at Halfway Tree with Trinidad contractors. And that, I think, was a CDB funded in part project. We tendered for that job and was selected. And my managing director at the time, Garth Lampard, was the person supervising the works. And when he could not make it, he would ask me to come down And unfortunately, he passed on a couple of years later. Uh, I think before the project was concluded. On that basis, I think we completed that element of the project, and then joined the Public Works invited us to look at other projects with them, and which we did. One of the, well, I could name those projects because they're quite vivid when you go around St. Kitts. The roundabout at the Central Bank, we did. We did the road to the peninsula, and we also designed and aid the construction of the tunnel at Timothy Hill. So those were the three significant ones that we have done.
So let's get up to date then. In terms of our Island Main Road project, phase 1 is completed. What's the exact disposition of phase 2 on that project? Also the Old Road Bay, if you can lump that
Well,
together.
sure. I'll start with phase 1 of the Island Main Road. We initially went out and we did the survey of the road condition, alignment, and the standards that would have been met and probably not met. And we, from that survey, we made recommendations as to what is to be done. We also developed budgets from those surveys. And the budgets we developed, we were advised to execute the first phase, which would have been looking at the west first 5 kilometers and eastern 5 kilometers. And that was kind of our decision to do that, because the traffic and deterioration would be impacted mainly when you approach the city. So, you know, if you go away from the city, the traffic would diminish. And as you get closer, more people would join from the villages. And once they're joining, the traffic impact and the density of that traffic, or the traffic count, would increase considerably. So you want to make that part of the road the best part, and that would enhance the traffic movement. So that was the reasoning behind doing that phase. It also had, I think, some budgetary constraints that we had to work within. So we had that first phase done and went straight into the second phase. The first phase, I think, we had actually tendered the project, and from the tender, we made the recommendation to the Public Works Department. Elements of that project would also fit in with the philosophy of the directors of Public Works and other persons who guide the project to use small contractors as much as we can in executing the works. And in the process, we had actually tendered, I think, some 7 elements of that, or I think it was 9 elements of that. And we selected contractors, some of them with very little experience, but good craftsmanship, good tradesmen behind them. So we did preliminary review of the quality of the persons we are getting involved with, and most of them would have done works with the Public Works. There are also people who would be from the communities, which was one of the criteria that we used. And one of the criteria we were given to work with by the Public Works. They want to get as much people involved as possible.
Okay, now so tell me about the road survey. Having done the road survey, what was the condition of the road what did you find in terms of the condition of the Island Main Road?
Well, the condition varies in different sections, but most of the areas would require significant reconstruction or overlay, and that would have been the core of our report. We would look at the surface, the aging of the asphalt, whether it develops into potholes or significant cracks, and look at the best method of restoration. So the recommendation would have highlighted the areas of greater deterioration. It would have also highlighted areas where we can do overlay and areas where we would have to do sub-base and rebuild those sections of the road.
But in layman's language, though, you said significant, and that does mean in layman's language the roads were just bad?
Well, I don't have to tell the people of St. Kitts the quality of the road. They would have traversed it much more than I do. But yes, the quality of the road would have been in the condition, and it varies in areas, but most of the areas we would have to do some reconstruction, some areas major reconstruction, and some areas we have to replace completely the upper layers.
And evaluate the local or the small contractors that were hired so far. How have you found them?
I hesitate because ideally I would want to categorize them, but that wouldn't be fair to them. But I would say that some of those contractors I worked with, it doesn't matter where the project is, I would want to repeat the process. And I don't want to single out any contractor, but generally, I would say Booney, INB, Huggins. Now you're getting me into trouble.
I just want the
because
skills,
I then shouldn't. But there's the skill
skills,
sets.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
The areas that we use them mainly for is to do sidewalks and drains, and that's what I was going into before your question. Is that apart from the road surface, we also look at realignment, because there are some dangerous areas to drive, especially when you get out of the city. And the alignment, we need to get realignment. There are areas that we need to widen the road, because St. Kitts is attracting a lot of tourists, and these tourists are not always able to navigate the narrow roads that we tend to have in the Caribbean. And there are some standards that you have to try to achieve with the width of the road. So apart from realigning, we wanted to make sure that except in the towns and the villages where the confinement or the land space is limited, then we would want to expand the road infrastructure and the road width. And also the sidewalks, apart from the drainage, the sidewalks, we find that was non-existent in some areas, and we think that if you have narrow roads, the people, if the vehicles are already restricted, the people must have somewhere to traverse safely, and we can't only cater for the motorists. You have to cater for the people, and the significant part of your population is actually walking, and within those communities.
So then the phase 2 is on stream, and the project, you would say in a few words, is going well, would you?
We are well advanced, not just going well. I think we have repeated the activities with smaller contractors for a third phase, if I may put it that way, which we are about to bring on stream to complete the remainder of the road. At the moment, we would have paved an additional 14.5 kilometers, we would have also been advanced in significantly. We are trying to achieve about 4.5 kilometers of road each fortnight or per month. And I said fortnight, but that should be per month. And that would have led to the completion of the road. So we are very well advanced, yes.
Okay, so and you're at which area now? I think you went as far as Saddlers and you're coming now towards town?
We are fast approaching the section towards Old Road on the other side, which is where we're trying to get to. And once we get there, then we would almost be linking back to the first phase that we have done. So we have done the surveys. We have started most of the surface milling and reconstruction. We have done most of the drainage, and we are about to start on the areas that we need sidewalks and additional drainage, which the smaller contractors will pick up.
Okay, so coming to Old Road Bay. And Old Road Bay is a separate component. Tell us about Old Road Bay. What was the thinking we know we're building resilience in Old Road Bay. What was the thinking and what was done or is being done at Old Road Bay? And what is the exact disposition of that project? It
would be unfair for me to jump to where we are without giving a little background to what we have done.
Certainly.
The Old Road Bay, as we understood it to be at the time, and by the way, ADB would have done revetment at Old Road Bay. So the rock revetment that was there, and that was a little before my time, that was ADB's involvement, again, I think, with Trinidad contractors. And the story of Old Road Bay is probably well known and better known than I would have expressed it. And there are people around who could tell it much better than I will be able to. But my understanding and the physical layout of Old Road Bay had two problems. One, significant land slippage on the land side. And when you have a hurricane and high surges, the road surface would deteriorate considerably. And depending on the magnitude of such surges, the road could be blocked or completely damaged. There are at least 2 or 3 times when I'm here that I had gone down with the Public Works to look at it and look at quick restoration. So we had looked at it from the point of view that we could look at landside construction, and we have looked at almost all the options available with the discussion with the team up at Public Works. We had looked at the railway lines, how they get across, look at moving the road up to the top beside the railway line and then down into Old Road. All of the options we looked at had challenges. So we were initially looking at cutting the hill and elevating the road at the same time. We had land issue, stability of the soil issues, and probably with all the analysis, the geological formation of the soil, etc., we look at the seaside, a more expensive option. On the face of it, I'm not sure if it's always the most expensive option. And now that we are well into it, I could see that it's not necessarily the most expensive option. It might be, in the long run, the cheaper option. One, we have reclaimed some of the land that the sea has taken. So you have gotten back a little bit of St. Kitts that was lost. Mm-hmm. So that's one significant achievement. Two, we realigned the road and 3, we elevated the road. So we mitigated against any further damage or loss of life, which is part of the mandate that we had, was to prevent such reoccurrences because people have died there. And we looked at the realignment and the reconstruction going towards sea. And our design, we wanted to fortify it without any deviation from the principles of road construction and good design. We also wanted to use as much local material as we can, because we could have gone with other options which would be more expensive but probably more elegant. We could have used bridges and that type of steel or piles or sheet piles and so.
As well.
Yes, but any option you go would have been more expensive.
Yes, yeah.
So we came up with the design. We costed it. We costed both options, option to go landside and seaside, and I got a little bit of history in the process. I think I was told that Old Road Bay's history is probably one of the first areas to be habitable in St. Kitts. And in my thoughts, I think if over time that area could be a really nice feature once the road is finished, safe, and we could simply extend it. I was at Spratnet the other night, and I was sitting there looking at the road, and I'm saying, this thing could be a night where you can hang out really in peace and quiet, and it's really a nice element of what we try to do. Where are we with the project at the moment? Very, very advanced. We have overcome most of the challenges and we are, I think, at the level that we set the road to be. What the base has to be completed, but I think I haven't been there in the last 2 weeks, but 2 weeks ago when I was here, the base were being laid. After the base comes, we have a concreted element to it that we will use to stabilize any deviation that might occur, and on top of that we place the asphalt. So we have those 3 components which is to be done, one already in progress. Where we are behind is really the armoring to the seaside, and we are about to put that in, but we are doing things in parallel. We are advanced in that area and well advanced in making the road complete. The fortification of it, we have to do that slowly because there's a profile. And although you would pass there at times and see the rocks are there, we have to pack them carefully. We have to make sure they're interlocked. And we have to put in all the other design elements that will constitute the type of structure that we don't want to see fail in our lifetime or a few to come.
So the armoring for the layman is placed in the rocks.
Yes,
Fine.
and they are
Yes.
the rock armor. The armoring is actually 20-ton rocks, so they are not easy to move and they are not easy to place. And the contractor we are using, Rock and Dirt, is very good in terms of providing the equipment, but they have taken the toll on Rock and Dirt's equipment. I did say to him once, I'm not sure who is tougher, if it's his equipment or him, but it has taken its toll on some of his equipment. He has replaced them, and the activity that he's undertaken now, I think, is to ensure that the armoring is in place and is in place correctly. That element of it is probably the most difficult to do. The approach is to take it from 2 or 3 areas simultaneously, because I think he has acquired a couple of pieces of equipment that will help him to do that without relying on one piece as we initially started out. But once we have the major armor rocks in, then we will fortify that with 10-ton rocks after that, and then the geometric shape, once we get that in place, then we would be where we want to be.
And as you mentioned earlier, in terms of the small contractors, the local working on the Island Main Road, the main contractor for the Old Road Bay, which is a $32 million project, he's also local.
Yes.
The material, the 10-ton and the 20-ton rocks and all the base material are being generated or procured locally from the quarry as well.
Yes. And I think this is an element that we need to get into in the Caribbean, and in particular the third world. We import a lot of everything, just about everything, and I'm guilty of that. It's easier to import or use imported things, but when it comes to construction, these are the most durable things that you will do in your lifetime. And if most of the indigenous materials are used, you don't have to worry a lot about contamination. You don't have to worry about replacement. You don't have to worry in the main about where the material is coming from or whether you can afford it, because it's right here. And the savings in doing such executing work in that order is tremendous. We might not be able to value it, take it at face value, but when you look at the secondary spill-offs, all the work, quarrying of the material is done here. The product is here. The transportation of outside of fuel, the people own the trucks already. So it's the transportation gets work for all the people, and all and sundry, I would say. At one point I have to say to the contractor, you have to gauge the transportation, because it's long haul. It's not just pulling the material, placing it. So you have to calculate when to pull, what to pay, so you manage the finances to the end of the project, because we are not going to bail him out.
Okay, I want to go to the lines, but before I go to the lines, and I should have gone there before, but we need to, as I say, lay the foundation for our conversation tonight. But I cannot go to the lines until and or unless we speak about the new cruise pier, which ADB has some consultancy engineering as well. Could you tell us, and straight up, what is the exact disposition of the new cruise pier?
Well, the pier, as you would know, was designed. It's a design and build project. There was a contract signed when we joined as the Casper's engineer. We have been involved from the beginning, from the first site meeting, and there are some. We set the agenda with the contractor, who is CCC, and their subcontractor, who is the JV driver. In the main, there are challenges to every project, and despite the summaries that I've given, all the projects I have worked on in my 30 years, we have had challenges. There are some which are severe more than others. The project was on schedule, if I could summarize it as that, to the point that we thought we would have been finished on the 23rd of September. which would have been the 18 months plus 10 days as extension of time. The major hiccup we had I could categorize in two areas. One, we have encountered issues with the dredging. Two, the piles and number of piles used. I think there was an addition of 27 additional piles, and the procedure that was adopted in putting them in place, we thought it was contrary to the common understanding of how contracts are done, and that's our view and our perspective of it. We also question the cost that might have arisen at the time, and we were more or less led to believe that some of those costs were not at the expense of.
But before you go to the cost, though,
Yeah.
the pier, from what I saw, it was 95% or whatever percentage, 98% complete. Explain that for us.
Well, I must even
Is it
add
100%
the extent.
complete now?
I would
The
add
actual construction
that
of the pier.
the contractor has indicated that the pier was complete, and we had no doubt that based on the delay because of hurricane, which would have taken us to the 4th of November, we were of the opinion that we were complete, yes. And we have had discussions in our last site meeting, which was we were looking at the opening of the pier and who would have been invited, etc. We as
There were four. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm trying to get to the lines though, because
Yes.
without the colors, there's no straight talk.
Okay.
But there were 4 cruise ships alongside today. What
Yes.
does that tell the country in terms of the pier, its construction, and its completion?
Well, you have arrived with the facility. The facility is demonstrating that within itself, that you can berth the 4 cruise ships simultaneously. Not many places in the Caribbean can do that. Even in Jamaica, we are hastening to add cruise ship facilities. We have just put one in at Port Royal in Kingston. So you're seeing the 4 cruise ship is telling exactly what is happening, is that the facility is now there and to be utilized, and hopefully to its fullest.
Okay, so let's go to the cost. And I want to play a soundbite from a member of parliament who had this to say just last week. The Honorable Congress Maynard. He said this.
We hear the government, for instance, is willing to overspend on the cruise pier by $60 million. It's about that. Overspend on the cruise pier by $60 million.
How do you react to that as the consultant engineer? You know the facts. What are the facts in terms of any overspending? If there's overspending.
I can't address what the government is willing to do. I can tell you what
They did.
we have
Okay.
on behalf of CASPA, what the facts are. The project cost is $43 million. We have claims initially on the project, and as I said, all projects have problems, and those claims, from our perspective, and let me back up a bit because I need to address it from CASPA's participation. All the meetings we have representative of CASPA, we participate, we document, and so we have had no indication, and there were no attempt to increase the cost of the project. And up to this day, I can say we have succeeded in mitigating as much as we can. Contractors will always claim for different reasons. And when the contractor put their claims in, we have to address those claims. This is part of the contracting world. This is not something we manufacture, and this is not something that applies to St. Kitts only. It applies just about any contractors, big or small. And the larger they are, the more expertise they have at doing that. So there's no overrun on the project. So, but it could be a term that people use loosely. I can't afford to use it loosely. There are claims which the contractors have made. We have evaluated those claims, and in the main, except for a couple that we have approved, which we have denied those claims for different reasons, and the reasons are well documented. There are claims for the unforeseeable circumstances with respect to the dredging. There are unforeseeable physical condition with respect to the piles. And then much later came some claims for delays or loss of time with respect to hurricanes. And I think we probably have 3 such claims. And the final substantial claim would be respect to the increase in labor and material cost. None of those claims have been approved by us, and the reasons we have given would vary depending on what submission we have gotten.
So the project is still within budget, there are no overruns. That's how I can interpret.
At the moment, I can tell you that we have paid out, and this will give you a guidance to the budget. We have paid out 41,000 something.
41 million.
Sorry, 41 million.
Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah.
41 million, and we probably have an retention of 5%, which is I can't remember. The figure could be like, I think we have retained 3 million.
Just
something.
under 2 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the only section that's not paid. But we haven't yet paid the full complement of the contract sum. And therefore, up to the point where the contractor was ready to hand over, we have not, and they have not, to be fair, they did not claim more than the contract sum.
Okay, and you said handover. I've heard that been banded about as well in terms of this handover. Just before we go to the lines, in terms of that particular project, and in relation to the use of the pier, right? How there's a particular reason why that pier is being used, why we have we had 4 cruise ships alongside today, like some other days, and there was a particular arrangement, I believe, with the contractors. That's a permission to use the pier, right, in order to mitigate against any loss of revenue and so on. Do you want to comment on that before we go to the lines?
Yes, I think it's it's information that's available and written and documented. The approach that let me say why first, is that the pier is designed to berth 2 Oasis class ships. The design criteria and the design called for a berthing depth of 37 feet. The contract also asks that we have verification as part of the handover of the pier, and for us to accept it, we have to ensure that those conditions are met, and we requested that being done. And when we discovered that we had areas, and some of those areas were highlighted by the contractor at the point when the dredging was done, but some are within the path of the dredge prism they created, and the others are within the berthing path of the ship. And we and I think my correspondence would say that it would be irresponsible if I did not do that verification, and if that verification is not done, then it is the contractor's responsibility to ensure that it is done. Because I have had some recent memories of, once a cruise ship is damaged, or in any way gets into your port, you seem to have a high level of responsibility. And islands like ours can't afford to replace a cruise ship. And we do not want to take on the responsibility, and certainly not from my perspective, that I can even contemplate not following what a design calls for. And therefore, once we had to do that, then we realized that there were high spots and they have to be removed. The arrangement that we have made is, and I wrote to ask if we can use the port to berth ships when required to mitigate against losses. And that was something we have requested, and the contractor allows that in providing that the parties agree to it.
Okay, well, I think it's time, or rather even long past the time, for me to hear from our listeners. And the numbers again, the numbers are 465-2555. If you just join us, I have with me in studio Martin Lee, Engineer Martin Lee, professor in his own right, and Managing Director of ADB Consultants, a Jamaican base with offices here in St. Kitts as well. And we've discussed several of the ongoing projects. And I'll open the lines, 465-2555 and our 718-577-2916. If you again want the cloak of anonymity, you can access us via our email, ZIZ straight talk, that's one word, at gmail.com. I always like to implore you, my Straight Talk family, to respect others, and of course to achieve that, you must first respect yourselves. Let us try to be fair to all concerned. Let us try to build goodwill and better friendships, and let's make sure the things you say and or do will be beneficial to all concerned. And in the process, let us ensure as well that in all we say and or do, we will strive to build a kinder, gentler St. Kitts and Nevis. With that said, at 2 minutes before the 9 o'clock hour, I say, caller, good night.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrice Liburd.
Your humble servant.
Right, and good evening to you. Well, Mr. Engineer, I can't call the name this, so engineer is good. Thank you very much for your explanation on the whole contract that you are partly or maybe wholly and solely responsible for. You could not explain things better for anyone to understand. And for the sake of time, because time is short, I'm so glad that you explained how you spoke about the new pier and what has happened to it and the reason for a lot of setbacks. Because like you hear the soundbite a while ago, many more serious propaganda critics been spread on that pier. So I'm so happy that it came out of the horse's mouth tonight and explained to the whole world that those propaganda that they've been hearing about half a pier and quarter pier and ships cannot dock up because they're going to touch. Well, the whole world, no, when they hear it from you, like I said, that do not listen to propagandas when they hear them because the truth is behind. Thank you again. You have done a great job in explaining how things are. That is you. All have a good night.
Thank you very much. Any reaction, Martel? No?
No.
But just for information as well, though, right? There's some parts, as is my understanding, that it's already dredged up to 36 feet. And and in some
there are 8 high spots, and those spots we have picked up are actually not our information. That is information provided by the contractor. So they have done it themselves, and they have provided us with the bathymetric survey, and from that survey, and that is a document that is available electronically and in paper form, and you can see them highlighted. So the areas varies from about 34 point something, and they vary up to 36 point something.
And just for information as well, public information, you mentioned bathymetric surveys. But that's part of the EIA, am I correct?
No, it's not part of the EIA.
But an EIA was done?
An EIA was done, and it was mentioned in the EIA, but what this survey does is really simply mapping what is at sea level.
But the EIA that was done refers to a bathymetric survey.
Yes, that's what. But so it's part of the information that was provided on, and what, well, it covers quite a wide area of things that we are obliged to do, and things that must be done, and the way some things are to be done. But this survey is a requirement that you have to do. Let me put it this way: if you're building on land, you need to survey that land, and you need to do topographic survey. The equivalent of that is the bathymetric survey for the sea. So we simply look at what is there and try to identify what is there and what we have to do. It also allows us to first estimate the quantity of material to be removed.
Okay, let's go back to the lines at 9:03.
Good night to the Honorable Ian Patches Liburd.
Good night, my dear brother, Politics.
And good night to the good engineer here.
Good night to you, sir.
Updating us on the project. You say you are part of the road too?
Yes.
The main road, the main road, okay.
Yes.
Now I see them doing some patching up back, because I didn't want to see them got to chop it black and doing some patches. What the problem that they're doing those patches?
What section of the road would you be talking about? I'm not sure.
Well,
on the Island Main Road?
Back in the West One Boys area, going back to Basti side, going back across to University, going back.
West Palm.
To Ross University.
They're cutting out the road and patching back on something.
Okay, I'm not sure what that is. Normally we would have meetings, and so that would probably occur within the last few days. I'm not sure, but normally the only time they would go back, let me explain something about the contract.
Yeah.
Once the contract is completed by the contractor, our contract requires that whatever happens in the next 12 months is at the cost and responsibility of the contractor. A couple of things can happen though, and it's not always the contractor's total responsibility. And there are some areas that we might have a broken water main, say, and they would have to go in and fix it. That they would do also at their cost.
Because I asked a guy, what are they doing again? He said that it got to be that, maybe that our week, they're sorting out for the weak spot. Like when surface good, when strong.
That could be the case also. And when we did Southeast Peninsula, there are a couple of areas. And if you drive down there right after we finish, you would have seen it. Because we have taken out areas that we consider to be weak or substandard, or that sub-base area might be suspect, and we would take it out.
Well,
And
the Honorable Ian Patches Liburd, I want to commend you to bring the engineer in the program. That is what transparency is all about.
Thank you.
You understand? I want to commend you, and I want to continue you to do the good work for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, because the naysayers, them out there saying all kind of things. And Patches, to be truthful, right, I know that in my heart, this government is overworked for 5 years, just going to 5 years. You all are overworked. People now say you are spending too much money. But I want to commend you again, Patches, commend the gentleman as the engineer, and especially with the Pier, because all kind of propaganda was spread into the culture, and see everything come out to reality, that nothing is wrong. The Pier, the boat, them could go to the Pier comfortable. And you all have a wonderful night. God bless.
Have a wonderful night as well. Thanks for the commendation. Caller, you live at 9:07.
Good evening, Mr. Liburd and his guests.
Good evening, my lord.
ADB.
good evening, sir.
Yeah. Quickly before I get into my main topic, Mr. Liburd, you have a guest tonight. I hope that for the 5th anniversary of the acquisition to government, that you'll have some guests on your program, and suggest 2 guests in the first instance, the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, and in the second instance, the Prime Minister and the Premier of Nevis. We, the listeners, would be glad to hear from them in dual form. Anyhow, to the Pier. I gather that the areas that have not met the depth requirements of the contract for the new Pier, that there may be some solid material underneath there. As an engineer, how can you tell me how you will get rid of that solid material such that the depth and the width requirements for Oasis cruise lines can come in there safely without damage and as a liability to the Port Authority? I'll listen up for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before you go, I'll take a few calls, Martin, and we respond to them. Caller, okay, you live. I'll respond to that one. How do you remove the hard spots?
Okay. This is something that has been discussed with both contractors and among ourselves. The hard spots are real. They are not fictitious at all. They are there. They have been identified. There are a couple of ways that you can go about it. One is that you could try and do some destructive approach to it, like blasting. That won't work. You'd destroy the fish life and other ecological sensitive areas that has to be maintained. The other thing, once you have hard material, we recommend, and if we were to design a project of this magnitude, and it's a design and build, I will repeat that, there's a piece of equipment, there are a couple of equipment that you can use. If there are no known hard material, a suction dredge can work, because you're pulling in the silt, sand, and that type of material. The other piece of equipment which is probably critical, and what we should employ here is what they call a cutter suction dredge, that it cuts the hard material and it pulls it in, and then you can dispose of it. They have employed at the moment what they call a clamshell, and they're hammering at it to break it up and then take it out. That, in my view, is time-consuming, expensive, and unreliable. That's as much as I can say on that. The other thing, though, I must say, is that a cutter suction dredge is an expensive piece of equipment.
That's the how. Let's go back to the line. I'll call you live.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Patches Liburd.
Good evening, my dear.
I just have a question for the engineer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was hearing in terms of the old road bay that there is a volcanic vein there. Is there any truth to that?
Not that I know about. Where did you get that piece of information? I would like to explore and see what it is. But even if you have a volcanic vein there, which would be in more danger, the road or the people who live in Old Road?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes. I would say then first we wouldn't be worrying about the road, we'd be worried about the people. And of course, the people who go there from time to time to entertain, they would be in far more danger.
Okay, caller.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your input. Let's go back to the lines. Caller. Yeah. Okay, I missed that call. Let's take this other call. Call you live.
A pleasant good evening to you, sir.
Good evening,
and
sir.
the engineer.
Good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, I want to commend you on the comprehensive report. My thing is the old road there. I've been on the top of the mountain numerous occasions, and I personally don't think a road could have gone up there. And I kind of glad also because
not to cut you off, I've been up there 7 times to look myself.
Okay.
Yes.
I think we'll have a lot of deforestation to get in a road, and I kind of glad that didn't happen. All the best, guys.
Thank you very much. Let's take this other call. Caller, you're live.
Hey, good night. Question. The old road there, right? It wouldn't be cheaper if you guys had built a tunnel instead of sending out that next piece of rock out there to build the road out there. For me,
Good.
no. I just
Good.
asking if it wouldn't have been cheaper and better to build the tunnel.
We'll respond. We'll respond. That's the only question?
Yeah, that's the only question for now.
Okay, I'll take this other call. I'll get back to that response. I'll take this call. I'll get back to the response. Call you live.
Yes, good night.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, concerning the old road bay, right? Originally, I am the one who designed it, I designed that because I have the drawings home here. I have the drawings here. And there's a volcanic vein that run under there, gone over to Nevis.
Caller, we're not doubting it, but could you say I? Who is I? John Brown? Okay, not kill. So tell us about the tunnel. Is it cheaper or would it?
Tunnel anywhere of any type is a very expensive process. I'm gonna pull on one which is I think is a very good example. They have done a tunnel in Boston, which was I think initially designed to. The design called for 5 or 4 point something billion and should have lasted 3 years. I think 12 years later, they call it in the U.S. the Big Dig. It run over budget, it run over time, and it turned out to be a very, very expensive approach to providing traffic. I'm not sure the cost of tunneling, the geological formation alone would give you a lot of resistance in doing that. And of course, I don't think you could design that and get a local contractor to participate. They would not have had the equipment, that's one. 2, the cost is completely prohibitive in terms of doing 1.2 kilometers of road for a population of 40 to 50,000 people. No matter how fast you grow, payback time, the economic rate of return would be substantial.
But you went as far as Boston, but you can come home here on the southeastern peninsula. What was the cost of that tunnel there? Wasn't 14 or 15 million, was it?
No, I think the initial budget was 6
million?
Yeah.
It was overrun, wasn't it?
No. We budgeted 8 million initially. I think it was 6 point something. I can't remember the total, but it wasn't overrun.
As low as $6 million, was it?
Yeah, 6 point something.
Okay.
Sorry, let me explain. There was the section which was the construction of the tunnel, and then the shell that we put in was another cost.
Overall, it was.
It would have been. I can't.
Okay.
Don't quote me.
Okay, don't misquote
Yes,
it either.
yeah,
We'll
I don't
get,
want
we'll
to
get
be-
that information
yeah,
for people.
yeah.
Caller, you live.
Yes, good night, Mr. Liburd, and good night, Mr. Consultant.
Good night, sir.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, a lot of nice things you're saying there. And to make the public aware. You're telling the truth. Well, the public want to hear the truth. But my concern is the section of road from the Bloody River back to where the Old Road Bay project is being done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you notice that, as far as I know, there was a build-up, and some of the area there is sandy. So they built some big blocks of concrete there. Because the road was not there in the first instance. So they called the area the new road. But they have some undermining from the seaside there. I would like to know what plans you have for across there. And given the fact that you have some angular shape in the road instead of curves, if you plan to straighten out the whole thing and to move it a little bit northwards, I would like to know. And also, if you're going to do that before the old road project is finished, given the fact that they have to be moving the latter boulders, etc., in the area, if you're going to work on it before that finish or after it finishes. But I have good faith and confidence in what you all are doing. Because I think I have a sense of understanding of what it's all about. So, that's it. That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure you're referring to east of Old Road Bay. There are quite a few areas there that we would want to put recommendations to the Public Works for future development. It is not inclusive. It's not included in this project. This project was specifically addressing the problem that we have with rockfall, mitigating against loss of life, and cutting off the people of Old Road Bay and beyond from the rest of Bastia when there's when we have extreme weather. I understand the section he's referring to, and that's something that you would have to do the same level of analysis, look at the best options, weigh them, and look at the affordability and the timeline for doing it. For the listeners' sake, I don't dictate what's spent and how speedily it's done. So I am the what they call in the movie the gopher.
Okay, let's go back to the lines. Whatever that means. Whatever that means, we go back to the lines at 19 past 9 o'clock. Call your live.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Liburd, and good evening to the gentleman, the engineer gentleman.
Martel Lee.
Good evening.
My question, right? When before the starting of the pier, there would have been some assessment that would have done with the area, okay? Did those finding, with the assessment, the situation that they're having now, was those finding realized, or did it happen during the dredging or after the dredging was completed? Is when these findings was started out or realized. Thank you.
Okay, fair question.
Well, for the purpose of the listener, I just need to repeat that the findings that we are now seeing, if the contractor admits to that, there would be no claim, because the claim is actually saying unforeseeable physical condition. So I will just leave that at that, because we have to resolve it, and it's better I say as little with respect to that. But what I can say is this, is that there's an existing pier which is Pier 1, and 2, there was a design which was done prior to that. And 3, we have had pieces of the material that has come up, which has the sign of the material being drilled before. So the evidence that the material was hard is there. Whether the contractor knew or ignored it, I cannot address that.
Point taken. Let's go back to the lines at 20 past 9. Call you live.
Yes, Mr. Liburd and Mr. Consultant again. Now, somebody was saying something about volcanic vein and Old Road Bay. There used to be a myth about some rocks there that used to open and close at a certain time a day. I used to hear people say so. But this thing about volcanic vein, one supposed to be somewhere in the Bay area, as far as I know. I'm not a great person, but I think I understand that from some geography. But not over there. And just below Brimstone Hill in the water, you have a vent. Sulfur build up the day and you could smell it. But I don't know if anywhere else in St. Kitts.
Well,
and, yeah. You're saying something?
Yeah, geological faults are all over the globe, and I wouldn't be surprised if you explore, you'll find different faults of different nature in different locations. My position is that Old Road Bay exists. The community of Old Road Bay exists. You need to commute. And what is the fix for a geological fault? It's certainly not an engineering undertaking that we can do. The fix for a road and the fix to mitigate against damage to property and person, we can do. So if we have to find geological fault for everything we do, I would suggest we do nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you, but some people even say that this is going to take it back. But listen, I read a story in Time magazine a long time ago where in Lebanon, the city of Tyre used to be an island offshore. And the ruler on land wanted to conquer the island. So they break down the city and fill up. And where is now all that is city? We used to be water. And that's hundreds of years ago. So I have great faith in that project would last. And I show you all now what you're doing. And to make the road higher than the existing road, that would prevent any rockfall from getting up there. It's a wonderful thing. Some people say about, they talk about tunnel and so forth, but you could walk on that while the existing road is being used. That's another thing. So, once again, I got to compliment this government, for doing this project. It's long overdue, and I look, and watch, I would like to live to see it completed. So, once again, I say thank you all for what you're doing.
Okay,
and have a good night.
Have a good night as well, my dear brother. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes, caller, you're live.
Yes, good evening again, Mr. Liburd.
Good evening, sir.
Firstly, I must say to you, congratulations on the work that you're doing. In terms of, the road project and everything and the other stuff that you do, okay, he must compliment you, And the one thing with the road too, with the design, by putting the sidewalk, I guess, you're thinking about, like you said, the pedestrians, because, most of the time people would have had to walk in the road, so putting in the sidewalk, that was a good added thing to the road. Now to the engineer, I realized like when the road is being surfaced off, when the first shortly after it is surfaced, right? He has a nice dark, shiny look to it, right? But then a few weeks after, that it tend to fade away into either kind of grayish or brownish look. You know, I'm wondering if that has to do with the asphalt, if it is a weakness in the asphalt, why do it would be like that? Because it's like, I would think that, you know, that dark, shiny look would last for much longer, but to me, it's fading away maybe a few weeks after. So I would like you to kind of adjust that, you know, if it needs to be adjusted, you know, in terms of answering the question, I mean.
Okay.
You know, to let us know, well,
Yeah,
why it's like that.
Okay, we'll answer that after these calls. Call you live.
Hi, good evening, Patrice. How you doing?
I am peaceful, my brother. Yourself?
Okay, good. You're doing a magnificent job. You own the company here. You know what you guys gonna have to do eventually? You might going down to Lodge. There by Lodge, it might take a lot of money, but maybe in your next term. You're gonna have to expand it. Because when you're coming down right there by Lodge, around that turn, you have to wait for the other, you know, vehicle to come to. So they might have to do some expanding there. But it might be a big project, I don't know. But you guys have to look at that in your next term.
Okay.
But and this eastern side is magnificent. I see the roads, it look like the roads in the States and so on. These guys did a good. I haven't been on the western side lately, but on the eastern side, man, when I was growing up, we didn't even travel that way much, but it really looks good. All the way from Connery all the way out. Really looks nice. The roads are smooth. Right over that Wascott thing there, and man, it's good. So, but eventually they got to expand there by Lodge.
Okay.
You know? Okay, but you guys doing a good job, and you're doing great. Patches, hang in there.
Thank you. I'm humbled, my brother. Let's go back to the lines. Call you live.
Good night again. The road they repair the Molyneux bus stop was before he moved, and the right hand side going up, them join over on the side they need to cover. Because when I walking up the answer, I can't get proper walking space on a policewoman. Almost cuss me off and say lock me up because I tell her I walking up there, she tell me walk on the curb, but I say it's too narrow and ain't got much walking space, so I had to walk and I keep walking in the road. I tell her just wait. She gonna get through, she in a car on my foot. By the time I get up the road, she could drive because she want.
Okay.
So yeah, them June we the old Molyneux bus stop.
Okay.
They need to put some cover or something on them for people to walk.
Oh.
You can't keep them so somebody in or something.
Okay, my brother. Martel, the drains need some covers, the expansion at Lodge, and the quality of the roads in terms of the quality of the asphalt being used. If you can address those before we go back to the lines.
Yes, I can take them in the order in which they come. The gentleman, his question is well founded. Asphalt, when it's just laid, it needs to be oxidized, and that is why, if you notice, we let the road sit for a while before we put the markings on, and then once we get on to the stage where it's aged enough, we put the line markings down. If you put it down before, it comes right off. And so his observation is well founded. It happens. It's not an inferior asphalt in any way. It's simply the behavior of the physical properties once exposed. What's mixed and exposed to sunlight, you will get that type of aging process that takes place. And if you watch it long enough, it even gets a little lighter than that. That's one. Two, the area by Lodge, I know exactly the reference point, and we have already done a design. We have looked at it because one of the objective is to actually have the road come up to the minimum requirement in all areas. And so it's looked at. I'm not sure where it's at with respect to widening, but the design, and it's something which Public Works is aware of and which they have had in the radar to be dealt with.
Drains?
the drain covers. I think those will be done. Once it's in the path, I'm not sure exactly where those are. I would have to pull out, but we are going on the road.
Molyneux, the roundabout you're doing.
Oh, the roundabout? I think we're in the process of constructing that area now. And we are putting in sidewalk
there's a
in
bus,
some area.
There's a bus stop,
yes. I think those are being addressed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we go back to the lines. Then caller, you're live.
Yes, I'm here again, Patrick. And Mr. Engineer?
Yes, sir.
I have two questions for you. Now, it is banged about all over the place to try to give people a bad impression that, tourists and all that should not come here because the government built a pier in shark-infested waters. Now, when you all were building the pier, did you all kill any shark? That's one. And if it is a wise thing for you all to build that pier in shark-infested waters because the information that they're giving is like right where the pier built, right there alone is shark-infested. So is it wise to build a pier in shark-infested water like that? I'll listen off the ear. Thank you.
You have another pier. Pier 1 is already there, so I'm not sure if I need to address the shark infestation. And I'm not, that's something I can't address. But if you have one pier and you put a second one, then you should be okay.
Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're live.
Yes, good evening, Patrick.
Take your time. Just remember
I understand that you do up the road, standing road coming across here, and everybody's saying that if you ain't going to finish it. And I realize you got the container down there with the thing for the bus stop then. And people are saying that you say you're going to give us $400 and how come you ain't giving us and the tonic. So,
$400 for what?
Have a blessed day. But down the ferry terminal look good. But I want me road up here to up Fairview, and I want the playfield finish down below by Fairview.
Okay. Got you, Lord.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, my dear. Before we go, I know you're not directly contracted or involved, I should say. I hope I'm using the right term with the bus terminal. I think she's being referred to.
Yes.
And I heard a news item, and I'm sad to say that the items coming across from that particular radio station was bordering on a point of nescience, really, not factual. But in terms of the bus terminal, the ongoing bus terminal, there will be what we call it. There's a cover.
Yes.
There's the cover. I call it.
That's a link.
The link. There's a
Yes.
link, but there's,
Yeah.
there's another term for it, really. But there's a cover, and there are sides for the bus terminal.
Yes,
And I'm advised as well that the road, once the asphalt is done, it will raise the road that's existing there. Am I correct?
Well,
there's a canopy. There's a canopy going to be over.
Yeah,
Right,
yes,
that's the right term.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could explain that before I go back to the lines.
The surface, we have to redo the surface within the bus park,
Right.
and all that will meet whatever standards that is set.
It would address the physically challenged people and so on.
Addresses,
right.
we'll
Yes.
address, but nothing is done other than putting in the structure
Right.
there at the moment, and it is not wise to have heavy equipment gonna traverse the area. We cut to put the foundations in,
Right.
and then we put up the heavier structure. For once that is done, we can get back to the finishing of the area.
And the finishing would include addressing the possibility of the rainfall and so on.
Right.
Yes.
The other thing also, it's designed in a way that it's part of the shelter that we are creating. It's supposed to be a money earning type of thing. So
Right.
rather than the taxpayer paying to shelter, they might get paid to be sheltered.
Right.
And if we get, I can make that public. If we put all the bits and pieces when we are done, we will have signs, but those signs will block rain coming in, both to the Bay Road side and to the South Seaside. and to the both ends you can actually put those, and you can get sponsors for them. They become elements of shelter, but they also are a little bit what we would say a money earner.
Yeah.
So it would then
Revenue generator.
pay for itself to be maintained. So if you want to paint it down the road, you want to do something, your benches that might, and to people to sit and might get
Yeah.
damaged, the rail, etc. So you'll have an income from it. Not many project that you do for the public good you can generate income from.
Yes.
So that was the idea behind it.
Yeah, so the news reporter should have actually come to the source and get the information rather than spreading that false information, really. Yeah. Well, that's not your fault anyway. I just heard it today and I thought I would mention it and clarify.
Yes.
Get you
I
to
normally
clarify.
don't address things that that are just said without the facts to back them up.
Okay.
I tend to ignore that because if someone wants the fact, they can get it.
Right.
And I can provide design information, and I'm free. I'm not tied down to any questions. Even if I can't give you the answer that I like, I rather give you the correct answer, and you can chastise me for it.
Okay, let's go back to the lines at 25:24 before 9. Caller, you live.
Hi, good evening, Patrick.
Good evening, sir.
I have a question. Hello, at least I'd say two questions.
I'm not hearing you too well. You seem a distance from your phone.
Just two.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you realize that the F.T. William Highway is sinking? It's like it's wobbling. There's where the vehicles run. There's a hump in the middle. And like you have a sink, those cane field roads that normally have a high up in the middle and where the wheels run. There's a sink. Well, the F.T. William have the same thing, and like the road is dancing. I'm not sure if it's because they're using dirt under the surface, because that appears to be like a new thing to me now. Before, I know when I was growing up, they used to use fine stone at a certain level, and so those roads used to be really stiff and steady. Now, the road appeared to be dancing on the F.T. William, and it appears to me like these new roads are being done the same, similarly like the F.T. William. However, I want to know if there is a guarantee on these roads and how long these roads should take before they go into repair. Again, the other thing is, if you notice going to Frigate Bay, there are some beautiful lamps, and for some reason or another, cars like them very much. The question is it possible that we could get some of those large tires that are being used on heavy equipment, cut them and put them around those lamp posts, and put a shield around the lamp and fill them with dirt or whatever and plant flowers in them and let people who do good art draw some art on those tires. I feel like they will become good protection for drivers and the lamps themselves, those lamp poles, rather than people cutting them down and they're not being replaced or they're taking some time to be replaced. But if anybody wants to hit anything, let them hit those tires. That's my feeling. And so I like the question to be answered and the wobbling of the road and how long the guarantee would be for the road to last.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We'll have a response to your question, caller, momentarily. Let's take this call. Caller live, 20 to 10.
Yes, good evening. I would realize, right, to the engineer. Hello?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, to the engineer. I would realize, like, when the road is scraped, right, and you press it and stuff, there tends to be like some areas where it look like weak spot, right? Weak spot, and then when the asphalt is laid on it now, these same areas that if you keep that observation of the road, you would realize that those same areas that would have looked like weak spot before the asphalt would have laid on it, those same areas would be the part that would you would eventually start having potholes or the road start deteriorating from, right? And next thing, my question, right, is concrete, like before you putting on the asphalt, is not about if you put on concrete, putting on concrete and concrete it first and then put the asphalt and concrete. Is that something that is done, or and if so, it's because of cost why it's not done. That's my question.
Okay, good question. Martel, the sinking of the FC Williams Highway, the warranty, if there's any lifespan of the road, and the lamppost protection as recommended, and whether we can use concrete before asphalt. Okay, how do you address those?
Okay, let me try to remember the order in which they come in. The first one is the FT Williams. That is not new. We have observed that some time now that it has been failing somewhat. What happened is that asphalt in itself age and it has life expectancy. Sometimes you can prolong the life by renewing the surface with microsurfacing and other methods of sealing, but the radiation and the heat tend to break down asphalt over time. So there's no way of getting around it. The mix design is what dictates how long before it starts to fail, but it will fail. And you can design mix that prolongs the life of the asphalt, but the more that design mix and the type of bitumen that you use will dictate the life and the cost.
Well, on average, what's the lifespan of?
It depends on a couple of things, but you should be looking at 8 to 10 years before any signs of deterioration. But it could be less. And the gentleman referred to weak spots. If you miss them, you can be in, because once the asphalt start to crack and open and water gets under the asphalt, that's a real problem because it undermines the base and the sub base, and that's where you get the movement. I think though that the highway in reference would have been there probably 20 years.
Yes, just about. But not as many as 20. But say, okay, go on to 20, but 2001, 2002, something about that.
Yeah. So it's not unusual. The level of movement, though, you'd have to make a determination whether it's the asphalt only that's moving, or this base or the sub base has been affected. The correct thing to do is to do enough to prevent water getting under the asphalt, and that would prevent it.
But we have identified that road already
yes
in terms of resurfacing, though.
Correct.
In terms of the lamppost protection,
good idea. I smiled when he said it. I was thinking of building a house out of tires. So his tires fill them, and I think it provide you with a thick, what they call in the UK, a trombe wall. Those old ancient houses with thick walls.
Yeah.
And then that would reduce heat gain getting in there. And then if someone want to get to you, they really have to do a good job. But it's the artists can do a lot with tires. From an engineering point of view, if you hit a tire, you get some deflection and it dampens the impact. So I'm not sure how and where you'd put them and how far some of them are from the road. But accidents will happen, and we can only do things to mitigate against it.
In terms of the road construction, asphalt in particular, you need that base material laid properly. The caller mentioned concrete before asphalting.
Right, and I think that caller had two parts to his question. One was that there are areas in the road which seem to be defective or soft spots initially, and they can manifest themselves after. What we do is that we remove the soft spots, and sometimes it's clay, soft clay, and that material is not suitable at all. Where it's identified, it has to be replaced, and it can be very deep in areas, and sometimes it's a judgment call how much of that material you take out. But regardless of how much you take out, you have to compact that area with good material, and the proxy density, that's the how hard that area is very critical. So once we observe such an area, as a matter of fact, if there's a pothole in the road, the contractor would explore to see the extent of the base or sub-base damage that's there and what would have caused it. And if any material there that would be compressible, moved down with load, we would immediately replace those areas. And we shouldn't be seeing that when you do the renewal of your roads and road surfaces.
Okay, this email...
I'm sorry, I was about to address the concrete.
Sorry. Yeah.
Concrete roads. And I studied in Germany for a while, and I can tell you, the Germans build roads like that. They put down concrete, and then they put asphalt on top. Two reasons is that concrete lasts a much longer time. And areas where you would have the reference to soft areas, you eliminate that because it doesn't come through. The concrete acts as your structure, and it's a structural member now, and it doesn't behave the same way as soil or granular material. The Germans, though, have a lot of money, and they build fast cars, and those cars have to be on roads that are true and can take the speed. Not sure if we are prepared to go there as yet, because concrete roads are very expensive.
But that really, as you said, would be an expensive exercise.
Yes.
Okay. As we wind down, though, I want you to make a comment on or rather, let me get this question to you. I was just going to ask this question from this caller. The question from the caller: I would like to ask your guests if the resurfaced roads were made to withstand the constant weight of the trucks carrying the boulders to Old Road.
Good question. I think the trucks are running on the two first kilometers of road, 5 kilometers of road that we have done. The section from the airport going east and the other section to the west. We have been running there now for approximately almost a year. If there was an issue, it should show up. And I would say the proof is in the pudding, as they would say. We can take a look. And I have no doubt that they're standing up, and they are designed to do so.
I'm here waiting to hear Dwyer calling and say all he has to say about the new pier. He had a lot of bad things to say about the pier, for he could do a better job, because he knows everything about engineering, and those who are building the pier has made a lot of failures. Call in, man, Dwyer, and make your contribution. He always criticizing. Tell the expert what you have to say, or else shut up and read this email. That's perhaps not for your comment.
I was about to say I don't know Mr. Dwyer. And therefore, I have nothing to say.
You shouldn't have. We always make sure everybody have their say.
Yes.
That's what street talk is all about.
And I'm sure that if he needs to ask a question, whether on air or directly, I'm happy to assist. And as I say, sometimes I do not always have the answers, and not all the answers that I give are to my comfort, but I will always make sure it's factual.
Okay, let's go back to the lines. Where's that call? Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Hey, good night, brother.
Good night, sir.
And the word, adios, sir, whosoever he be. I read this question to Patrick. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
I wanted to know that this corner in St. Paul's old school old school in St. Paul. Hear me?
Yeah, but listen.
Yeah, the old school in St. Paul is in the corner. If the corner ain't coming out. No?
Okay.
I asked him the question that they need to turn the ears before me in your band.
Mm-hmm.
But in the corner need to come out.
That's by the old school or by the church school you're talking about?
Yeah, right down in the corner.
Okay. You're familiar
School in
with that
St. Paul. Dr. Douglas went.
Okay.
I'm not quite familiar with all the corners, but I can say generally what we are doing and what the aim is that...
And that hillside, when you're coming from St. Paul's, coming to Gateway, right on the hill.
Okay.
We call it the Jelly Walk.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right in St. Paul on the hill, by Couples.
Okay.
I think I'm familiar with the area, yes, but the general principle that we are applying is to have.
Okay, just any other question, caller?
Yeah, and you have a corner, you have a cove there when you're coming from Atlas Village.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to Windies.
Coming to where?
When you're coming from the Atlas Village,
mm-hmm.
you come up the hill,
mm-hmm.
coming like you come in Cairn, and the corner when you come up on the Atlas Village, up there you got a cove and the corner there, a piece of wall outside.
Okay.
As you're coming up from Miss Daffy and the corner.
Okay, right.
You got me?
Yeah, we got you.
You come up the cove, and you cook to come by the farm, where the farm coming there. A piece of wall in the one in the corner. The corner need to ease out.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, we got you.
Because the motor big truck and thing coming around there. It's a cove in the inside there. In the corner, you got more room where you could take, and you left when you're coming up, and open. I ask you for please, asking the question if these things can be happening. Because we got the new road, and even though we don't pitch the road on there, the car is difficult still.
Okay. Okay,
I'm
got you.
sorry,
My pleasure, sir. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller? Are you there, caller?
Good evening, everybody out there in Radio Land. And good evening, servant.
Good evening, my brother.
That is Liburd, man. How are you doing tonight?
I am peaceful. Yourself?
I never felt better. I'm feeling good, and I'm getting a symbiotic reaction from you. Thanks for that. I'm sure everybody is feeling extraordinarily good tonight too. I want to thank you very briefly about a big truck, right? About the sidewalk you are building now in Chaos. Right down in the cut. You know where after you turn to come up by the school coming from town, there's a sidewalk or something that passes a wall. It is very narrow. If a big truck passes you and you shrink away too far, you'll fall into a cut more than 20 feet down at least. But that's just another of those obvious things that in times past were not thought of. Kudos, Team Unity, and kudos, Minister Servant Ian Patches Liburd. You were born to build, create, and construct the added passenger traffic from those 4 ships docked, turned downtown into an obstacle course of human flesh, jostling each other up close, if you will. Thank God for peace. Thank God for your servant, Minister Ian Patches Liburd. We love you and we love somebody else too. Very briefly, Professor Martin it is, Managing Director of ADB. Good night. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Man, you are a marvel. I don't want you to think. Democracy is alive, you see, in St. Kitts, so I don't want you to think too harshly about the unjust and unscientific criticism that you are getting. We know. We love you down here. You are a marvel. You are the sum total of 30-plus years of professional experience that have yielded phenomenal results to, let's say, an innumerable quota of satisfied clients. That's why you now sit at the apex of a multinational entity with outlets in St. Kitts, London, Kingston, and New York. You have been a valuable and productive long-time partner whom we love and from whom we have gotten much. I'll just simply mention the Peninsula Road. After you pass through and you're going up by the tunnel, it quiets our doubt and it calms our past fears that we had. You have given us too much. I'm not even talking about down there. The sea defense in Halfway Tree. We thank you for that. You, as the managing director of 62 engineers, have spoken both about the Pier, the Old Road Project, et al. You have given us no reason to distrust you thus far, and our gratitude is encapsulated in our further extension of said trust. We as a nation will continue to trust it and contrast you above the shrill voice of unthinking and unscientific defense. Dissent. I end by saying their logic is a little like the logic of a fanatical laborite who told me giving $500 to indigent people is much too much, and she can't wait until Dougie gets in to give them 15 labor logic folks. Good evening, folks. We thank you, Managing Director. We love you.
Thank you. The caller referred to the corners, St. Paul's and Utley's and other areas, and also the narrow sidewalks in Keon. But generally speaking, I think you referred to the widening of the road where possible. But how do you react to that caller?
I think all the areas except in the villages where we cannot increase the width of the road will be done. And I'm saying that generally because that's the objective. The sidewalks, we use standard width where they can be achieved, and it will be done. I think that all that we have done so far are to the standard or the maximum that we can get. With respect to the corners, there are some which we have already incorporated in the design, and there are some which we have identified that has to be done independently, because if we incorporate them into the road, we would prolong the life of the road and the cost of the road unnecessarily, because the operations might be different.
Of the project.
Yes. And that is why we would take out like the wash gut, and we would get an I&B to do it independent of the main road construction, because one, we utilize a contractor which is reliable, efficient, but can develop the project independent of the total 47 kilometers of road which we want to do. So we will identify such corners and we will plan them with Public Works, and some of them are being implemented. I'm not sure how many of them were in this project, but they are all considered as part of the overall analysis that we have done.
And part of the road infrastructure development, which, focusing on the road, we didn't address it tonight, but the traffic signals as well. We did phase 1, and there's a phase 2 coming up.
Yes. Phase 1, I think, was as a result of very close discussions and liaison with planning. I remember we had stakeholders meeting and they were involved. I think then phase 2 is from really the traffic counts, the information we have collected, and the analysis that we have done. Part of that was the general traffic configuration. So the phase 1 addresses the most critical intersections. Phase 2 will address the next the set of areas that we considered urgent. What we have picked up is that the traffic in St. Kitts is actually growing and growing very fast. There are two components of this second phase, though, which is inherently part of the development and expansion that has happened at Port Zante. The west entrance and the east section has to be controlled because both the taxi operators, tour operators, and general commuters in and out of there, if they're not controlled, if you look at the Bay Road area, just that area alone, and if you look at increasing the traffic in that area now, it would be a nightmare without some automatic
So which
control.
areas have been identified for signals? You okay to say?
There are the two areas at
West and East?
Yes, and then we have the Sundown Road. We have the end of the road at Rams. We have
Best Buy,
sorry, and we have Wellington, and is it
and the,
7 in total?
they're coming
How
soon.
many did I go? Yes,
They're coming
I
soon.
was trying to keep a track of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But as we wind down, I'll take perhaps before we wrap as well. It just came to mind. I had a discussion years ago with an engineer who worked on the SSMC railway, which goes right around the island. Right?
Yes.
And I was told back then that the idea was to have all the utilities inclusive and the roads running alongside the railway. Is that a possibility to deal with, for example, yes, you'll have to do some bridging to deal with the area in Utleys and Lodge, and because there's a railway that's going right around the island. Is that a possibility to have some of the roadways getting out of the villages, so to speak?
Well, you will always have to improve your traffic circulation, no doubt about it. And you will have to take it in stages as a government, unless development occur in some countries slowly. In others, it is much more rapid than we can predict. But the railway was a form of transportation, probably mainly at the beginning with respect to agriculture and so forth. But it's a path already existing, and it might be much more economical if you utilize some areas if you're not going to put your rail back in. And even if you do, it depends on the rail you're putting in, because there's some...
No, but I was talking about the
Yes.
road running alongside
Right.
the railway.
Yes, but in a lot of the areas, and that's what I'm saying, is that you can either look at rail as an entity, and you can rail plus road. But without the growth and demand for it, infrastructure, like everything else, perish if it's not utilized and you're not getting the economic rate of return. So you can't rule out anything, and also you don't want to overbill for what you don't need, and you want to put it in when you need it.
Okay, as we wind down, I'll take this perhaps and make these two calls my final calls. Caller, can you use 30 seconds?
Mr. Liburd,
Yes, sir.
good night and good night to Mr. Lee.
Good night,
Good
sir.
night, sir.
I have two concerns. The picket fence over Tabernacle by the cemetery. I realize that real dirty from the asphalt, and I did promise that they're going to paint over by December. It's nothing done with that yet. And the next concern is the corner. When you left Tabernacle going Sadler, the first corner you make, it's very dangerous. To me, it is worse than how it used to be. Right? I realize to take out some of the almond tree, but I thought the road will be a little bit more straight across there. The corner is very dangerous to take, Mr. Lee. And if you want me to take you there, Instantly, you know who you're talking to, but you can't bring me any radio. I work public works. I normally point out to Mr. Gilbert when I see anything. Right, they have a lot of water to settle right in the same corner. I wonder how come you didn't put in a pipe under the drain. Now they have a gut right there with the arm until them go down there.
I know exactly where you're talking, and there was I think there's a drain that we have designed for it. The location, I think it was being discussed as to the appropriate location to put it. We can straighten all the roads to make them very straight, and I must be fair in this. If you move all the roads to virgin soil, we couldn't afford it.
No, I mean,
Yeah. No, I'm just making that point in general. The other thing, I know. Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, we got you. I'll have Miss Martelly respond. Thanks a lot for your input, and I think I'll make that my last call for the night. You can respond, Martel, and in the process, give your final wrap as well.
Yes. I think his concern is genuine, but you can, in that area, we have aligned the best way we can, given the task at hand. I know that the road is superimposed in an area where you will have water settlement, and that is being addressed. That's not something that is discovered. We knew, and we have had discussions with as a matter of fact, we have had several meetings in that locations to align the road. We have also had very deep concerns with respect to the almond trees and whether we should take them out, what we should do. All the options were weighed before we made a decision. So, and we went to, I think Mr. Gilbert went to sustainable development and, discussions and letters back and forth before we did that. To align the road in all areas, it's not going to happen, and it's not necessarily the best thing to do. If you have a completely straight road, I can tell you more people fall asleep. So you tend to have movements in the road, so you stay alert.
That's interesting.
Yes.
The picket fence?
If I'm not sure if that has come up yet in our discussion, but anything that we have done that is affected, it will be renewed. And sometimes they wait until all the work is finished before the contractor renews it.
Did we address the warranty on the roads in terms of the
I did say that the contractors, but it was with respect to the section out at Ross. Yes, but it applies to all areas. The contractor has there's a 1-year warranty that the contractor deals with any defects, any breakdown, anything that we realize over that period of time. They will go in and address.
Because you can see the reflectors, some of the markings as well.
I can address the markings that you're seeing in most areas. We have actually alerted them to that. The reflectors, we're not quite sure of the reason for so many of them moving. But once it started happening, we have gone to look at the adhesive that's being used.
Okay.
We have looked at alternative methods, but we have had that problem on the southeast initially, and we changed the adhesive that they were using, replaced them, and it seemed to hold up better.
Okay.
But we can do a mechanical bond,
okay,
or we can do a chemical bond.
Your final wrap in terms of the overall project development in St. Kitts and Nevis?
The only area that has slowed down the project on the Island Main Road, and we haven't mentioned it at all, but we have to replace some pipes
on the water,
on the water, and some of those pipes, although they are not leaking, we have to replace them because once it's asbestos, we recommend that they be taken out. We have been grappling with what's the best time to do the Wellington Road area because of the population and the the number of laterals that we would have coming off serving the higher the density in population. And most of the delays would have been because of the timeline in replacing the water lines. And we have addressed that, so we will speed that up. Overall, though, I would want to commend most of the small contractors that we have worked with. It's really a pleasure working with them. We have used a difficult contract, and most people would have gone to school to understand it. There are lots of courses that people go to understand it. The quality of work that we get from most of them are very good, and we haven't encountered any major problems working with them, and I would recommend them for even work of higher value in the main. And I think the plus for me is working with them.
Okay, and some $25 million, I think, went to the small contractors. That's important. And lots of employees have been on these projects as well. We didn't make mention of that. But thanks a lot, Martel Lee. We're surely out of time. And I look forward perhaps when we can have another update in due course, not too distance from now. But in the process, I want to also thank Almighty God for guiding our conversation tonight. And as always, I want to thank you, the many callers who participated. I know that some of you couldn't get in, just don't know why. I want to thank the emailers. I want to thank the listeners. I want to thank the engineers, producers, John and Bevin as well. And I don't know if Fear is around, but I want to thank you, my Straight Talk family. And we will connect on Monday for another edition of Straight Talk. Until we do connect, have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Be good to yourselves and to all whom you meet. And remember, whatever your mind conceive, that you will achieve what you first got to believe. So when you wake in the morning, thank God for the morning light. Thank Him for taking you through the night. And my Straight Talk family, keep moving on. Until we connect, be good to yourselves. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye, my Straight Talk family.